March for Our Lives, and the rise of the new fascism. Coming up next on Deceptions of the Ages News. Hello everybody and welcome to Deceptions of the Ages News. The first thing that I of course want to tell everybody is thank you. Thank you so much for subscribing and commenting. We are near 2,000 subscribers already, and I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking, oh, what kind of cheesy trick is he going to do now to get me to subscribe to his channel? And I'm just kind of hurt by that I would do any kind of cheesy trick or gag or anything to try to get you to subscribe to my channel. Uh-oh, did I say subscribe? Watch out. Go, boy. Oh no, would you look at that? It done took my head clean off. Now see what you did? Come on guys, you gotta subscribe, especially you over there in Wisconsin. You gotta subscribe, man. And you, over there in Boston, over in Harvard Yard, you gotta subscribe too. I mean, you want this information, don't you? So if you just hit that subscribe button, we'll be up to 1 million subscribers in no time. And you got ahead of the rest of the crowd. All right, so unless you live under a rock, you know that last weekend was the famous March for Our Lives protest, which is a response to the shootings in Parkland, Florida. Now, I want to put out, first of all, that I do not own a gun. I may own a gun someday. I would like the right to own a gun, but personally, don't own a gun, don't feel a need to have a gun, and I think I can sum it up best as I said border one time when they asked me if I had any deadly weapons. I said, only these. Of course, they didn't think that was funny. All right, so what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about Parkland High School and how these events, particularly, especially now that their political objective is to disarm American citizens in spite of the growing threat of terror in our country, we need to just look at a certain playbook used by the Nazis that was handed to us right after World War II. Now, if you are not familiar with Deceptions of the Ages News, what we do is we have a theory that everything that goes on now happened before. Nothing is really new, right? So what we're going to talk about today, or actually what we're going to talk about today really fits in with what the reactions are to some of the things that I post on this channel. Because people who don't understand history just think that things happen by themselves. Major mistake to think that. Nothing happens by itself because that would just be too expensive and people would just lose too much money. So what we need to talk about today is a formula that has been used by the United States intelligence and counterintelligence services since World War II. And what happened during World War II? Well, they ran into this guy at the end of the war, and his name was Reinhard Gehlen. Now, who was Reinhard Gehlen? Well, he was a shyster, first of all, but he was a Nazi, and he had a special talent. And that special talent was counter-terrorism in the Soviet Union. So at the end of World War II, when the United States was somehow squaring off against its ally, the Soviet Union, Reinhard Gehlen came forward and said, listen, you bring me over to the US and I'll tell you everything you need to know about the Russians. Well, Reinhard Gehlen ended up not telling anybody anything that was very worthwhile about the Russians, but he taught them a really cool trick. And in order to understand the trick, we have to go back in time, back to 1939, the Polish border, and the Germans, the Nazis, the fascists, they want to invade Poland. They want that country for themselves. So what they're going to do is they're going to make up something, and remember the formula: make the problem, present the solution. Problem, solution. Make a problem, present the solution. Problem on the Polish border was there was a German radio station that was somehow mysteriously attacked by Polish patriots or nationalists. And on the news there were pictures of these dead German bodies, and the poor guys that were working at the radio station murdered in cold blood. And that just made everybody cry for the annexation of that particular piece of territory, and it ended up being the rest of Poland. But the actual fact is, those bodies that they saw in the pictures, German prisoners executed. Bodies were just dumped there, and then they showed the photos. Problem: attack on German radio station. Solution: invade Poland. Now, is that a one-time deal? Of course not. It's just too good of a trick. The Reichstag, the government building of Germany, caught fire, right? That would be like our Senate, or our House of Representatives, or our whole congressional building just burned down. So who did that? Well, probably the Nazis, but they blamed it on a poor Jewish guy, right? And then they went after the Jews. So again, problem: Jewish terrorists. Solution: go after the Jews. Now, also let me add that during this time, a lot of people were saying, no, wait a minute, those are just really hokey tricks. We're not going to fall for that. Now, back then they didn't have the internet or Twitter, so people just had to gather together in coffee houses, and they spoke with each other, and rarely, sometimes maybe telephone conversations. But the Germans went after these people. They had spies everywhere. Not the Germans, I'm sorry. The Nazis, the fascists, they had spies everywhere. And who were they after? They were after the communists. They were after anybody, really, who opposed them. And did they play fair? Did they play nice? Never. Not once. Now, is something starting to look familiar? Are you starting to see a certain pattern here? A certain sense of intolerance for any other ideas? Now, one thing I've noticed about the intolerance of ideas, especially in an ignorant society, is that in a enlightened society, people do not attack people for having ideas. If I have an idea, then attack my idea. Don't attack me. But what I see on the internet, especially like on Twitter and YouTube, is that we have a lot of very uneducated, unaware people that don't really understand what's going on. And so that confuses them, and the confusion turns into hate. And you see it on posts on the internet, like this one from my friend John Herrera. So we understand this idea about present the problem and present the solution. And that was given to us by the Nazis. And a really nice idea, because it got us involved in Korea, it got us involved in Vietnam, it got us involved in Iraq, it got us involved in Afghanistan, it got us involved in pretty much every war, every minor conflict. Actually, I forgot Panama, Grenada, etc., etc. But Desert Storm, and on and on. But every problem is created by the United States Central Intelligence Agency, and now the FBI domestically, and the solution is presented by the government. So now that we understand that principle, let's take a closer look at the Parkland High School shootings. Now, the first thing I want to say is some kids died there. And that's the one thing that there should be no other thought right now, except that some poor kids died and people dropped the ball. Now, before we start talking about people dropping the ball there, people dropped the ball when the World Trade Center was blown up the first time. People dropped the ball at Waco. People dropped the ball at Oklahoma City. People dropped the ball on 9/11. And never, not one time, was anybody fired. Nobody lost their job. Nobody was reprimanded. And American people lost their lives because these people didn't do their jobs. And American people, like sheep, said, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to keep going with my life, and I hope they don't kill me, and I hope they don't come after me, and I hope they don't label me anything on the media. So, because I'm not going to speak up. I just want to keep my job, and I want to watch TV at night, and nobody bother me. Now, in the United States, the solution always costs, number one, a lot of money and our rights. We had the Patriot Act after the CIA and the FBI dropped the ball on 9/11, and they stripped away almost all of our rights right there in one swoop, and nobody said anything. Why? Because people were scared. Scared of terrorists? No, they were scared of the government. They were scared because they knew the FBI was going around knocking on anybody's door who questioned the war on terror. Now, I'm going to give you another principle that we inherited from the Nazis, and particularly Adolf Hitler. Some say Stalin said it, but if you tell a lie long enough, people are going to believe it. So let's look at a Russian collusion thing that just seems to drag on forever. This constant attack on a democratically elected leader of the United States. These are all attempted coups, but which are all Nazi tactics, and exactly what Hitler did to his political opponents in Germany that were in the Reichstag. He just basically drummed them out of power, made them give up power, but harassed them until they just couldn't take it anymore and they gave up. So they're telling this lie now. What is the lie they're telling? Kids at a school were killed. They were murdered by one of their classmates, a classmate who had been warned about. The FBI knew about the guy, the social services, the police, on and on. And when the kids started shooting, these guys just sat there and did nothing and let these kids die under orders from the police department. So if I was a kid, I'm not, but if I was a kid, the first thing I would say is I'm going to bring a gun to school because I don't want anybody to do that to me. Okay, so another principle that Hitler had for the conquered territories that the Germans took over was that they did not believe that the conquered populations had any need for read and do basic arithmetic. Read, write, basic arithmetic. And look at these kids today. Their classmates were killed by somebody with a weapon, right? And instead of saying, why didn't the police help me? Why didn't the community help me? Why didn't the government help me? All of these people who are around me, who I've been told all my life will protect me in a situation, they were told to back off and let me die. Now, where is the disconnect? All right, so we see these Nazi tactics. They've been used for 60, 70 years now, and nobody seems to really understand it. I mean, people understand it, but nobody does anything and nobody says anything while they continue to take over and over. And one of the things you really have to watch out for, especially today when you watch these protests, do you see how they call everybody else fascists and Nazis and racists, when they are the fascists and Nazis and racists? What is 1984, and I'm just going to say this very quickly, because whoever wrote the screenplay for this Parkland High School shooting, look at the guy's name, David Hogg, right? If you read 1984, you know that the main players are the pigs, the hogs. They made life miserable for everybody. So do you not see that these are the Nazis or the fascists or the communists or whatever you want? Are they going to come for our guns? And unfortunately, I'm afraid the answer is it's coming. I mean, we've been knowing about this for a long time, and I'm afraid that it's just about the time to do this. And especially at a time when Wages are so low. These Democrats have basically taken on non-real lying narrative to keep people distracted while they're pulling their maneuvers behind the scenes, overseas. People, we need this. This is. We need to really get organized. We need to make sure that Republicans win this next election, and we don't need the same kind of Republicans we had before. We need people who are patriots, and we need people who are going to protect our country. And we're going to need people who get these enemies of our country and get them out. It's a matter of national security. We've got so many people committing alien and sedition violations. We need to get rid of them, and we shall. But we're in a dangerous spot right now, and I just need you to understand that the Nazis are here. These are Nazis or communists. It's all the same thing. They are intolerant, and they're going to use whatever violent means and whatever dishonest means, as is obvious, to take power. And if you're stupid enough to fall for it, then there's nothing much I can do. I'm running for the U.S. Senate. Vote for me, support me, and if you don't, then don't complain, because this has been going on for a long time, and you haven't done anything yet. So when are you going to actually take action? This is Deceptions of the Ages News. We'll see you next time.